In the opening scene, we find a man waiting at the airport in the city of Riga. Suddenly, a taxi arrives and takes him away, revealing his name to be David Stephen. As they drive through the city, David admires the beautiful architecture, and the driver praises the city's beauty. During the journey, the driver and David engage in conversation. The driver drops David off at his rented accommodation, where an old man, the actual owner of the house, greets him. The old man gives David a tour of the house, along with a car to use. During this time, the old man provides David with detailed information and then leaves.
Then the scene shifts to David's office, where we learn that he is a journalist. He meets people, engages in conversations, and settles at his desk. It's his first day at work, and his new journey begins there. From here, you will see two neighbors strike up a friendship that quickly spirals out of control when an accident happens that changes both lives. This movie, while a little predictable in the sense that as a viewer you know that this friendship can't end well, is straightforward and was well done. So David. After work, David returns home and tries to start the car provided by the landlord, but it doesn't start. He goes to his neighbor to ask for some fuel. Robert, the neighbor, helps him out by giving him a bit of fuel. David tries to start the car again, but it still won't start. Just then, Robert comes over and helps him get the car started. In the process, they strike up a friendship. David convinces Robert to join him for a ride, and they set off together. The next day begins, and as usual, David heads to the office. He asks his boss, who happens to be the same landlord, for a few days off, which is granted. In the evening, David and Robert go out to a party where they hit up a club, enjoying themselves to the fullest. They chat, share stories, and have a great time.
During the party, David meets a girl from London, revealing her name is Jenny. As they hit it off, chatting and exchanging numbers, they enjoy dancing together until the party ends, and everyone heads their separate ways. The next scene shows David and Robert driving back from the party. While they are talking, they accidentally hit someone with their car, even though there's no one else on the road. When they look, they see that it's the same girl, Jenny, from the party. David panics, blaming himself and wondering what to do. Robert urges him to leave quickly before anyone notices. Reluctantly, David leaves Jenny behind, feeling guilty and remorseful despite not wanting to.
Later, we see David and Robert in David's room discussing the accident. David feels they should have informed the police, but Robert convinces him that involving the police would have ruined David's life. He points out that Jenny is already dead, and ruining David's career won't bring her back. Robert suggests they forget about the incident for their own good. The next morning, we see that the police have arrived at the spot where the accident occurred and are investigating. Meanwhile, Robert, who works as a doctor or caregiver for an old woman named Petrov, is there taking care of her. Petrov, who is quite old, starts talking to them about the previous night's accident. Robert realizes that Petrov is talking about the same incident. Petrov mentions that the previous night, two men had an accident with a BMW and fled the scene. Although she didn't see their faces, she heard them. Robert is shocked to hear this. A little later, the police arrive at Petrov's house to question her, but Robert manages to stall them, saying that Petrov is unwell and sleeping. The police leave after hearing this.
Meanwhile, we see David, who is deeply remorseful. The next day, he goes to the office and finds himself in a meeting where they discuss Jenny's accident. David becomes even more distressed hearing about it. At the same time, without informing David, Robert disposes of the car in a nearby lake to destroy any evidence. David remains unaware of this. After that, we see the office atmosphere, where David is visibly upset and unable to concentrate. At that moment, a girl approaches him, who turns out to be Jenny's sister. She asks for David's help, requesting him to publish something new, which would mean a lot to her. Despite his reluctance, David avoids committing to anything and leaves without saying much. When David returns home, he notices that the car is missing from the garage. He confronts Robert, who justifies his actions, saying it was necessary. They argue, each sharing their side of the story. Robert tells David that they will report the car stolen and reminds him that they both returned home through tram, a local train at that night. Their argument concludes as the night ends. The next morning, we see David and Robert fishing together, thoroughly enjoying themselves. In the evening, they have dinner together, cooking and eating the fish they caught. They spend the night chatting and enjoying each other's company. On the next day, we see David at the office receiving a call from the police regarding the missing car. The police inform him that the complaint for the missing car must be filed by the owner of the vehicle. Before the conversation can progress further, the call abruptly ends.
Suddenly, Jenny's sister arrives at the office. She informs David about the slow progress of the police investigation and expresses her frustration. She tells him that she knows how to catch the killer and insists that David join her. Initially hesitant, David tries to brush off her request, but Jenny's sister becomes emotional, pleading with him to help. She explains that besides him, she has no one else. Their parents passed away when they were children, leaving them as each other's only family. Feeling for her situation, David reluctantly agrees to help, even though he knows more than he lets on. Despite his reluctance, Jenny's sister's emotional plea sways him, and he decides to assist her. Next morning, David is at home, feeling uneasy. He starts to suspect that Robert is secretly keeping an eye on him, making him him uncomfortable. Shortly after, David receives a call from Vanessa. She tells him that the police have found a witness and she's overjoyed. Hearing this, David becomes anxious and immediately calls Robert. He confides everything in Robert, who rushes to the witness's house.
Upon reaching there, Robert administers an injection to the witness, an old woman, pretending it's for a heart attack. The woman dies on the spot. Meanwhile, Vanessa receives a call informing her that the witness has died of a heart attack. Devastated, she cries and hugs David, who, unaware of Robert's actions, believes it was a real heart attack. After this incident, David tells Robert everything, unaware that Robert was already aware of all the details. As their friendship deepens, Vanessa and David spend more time together, constantly talking and getting to know each other better. One day they go out for dinner, and during their conversation, they express their feelings for each other, eventually entering into a relationship.
Meanwhile, we see Robert watching them from a distance. Seeing them together, he becomes lost in thought and then leaves abruptly. Later, when David and Vanessa leave the restaurant, they find that someone has tampered with their car. Unbeknownst to them, it was Robert who had tampered with the car. Next day, David returns home and confronts Robert angrily, demanding answers. He accuses Robert of tampering with the car and trying to cover up the accident. He also accuses him of being jealous because David is in a relationship with Jenny's sister. David tells Robert that he doesn't care about him, and their argument escalates. Next morning, David heads to the office, and on the way, he meets Vanessa. She assures him that their relationship is not just because of Jenny and he doesn't need to worry. Emotionally overwhelmed, they kiss each other and spend the night together. Meanwhile, the house owner, who is also David's boss, calls to inform him that his missing BMW car has been found in a lake. Shocked, David rushes out of the house, calling for David. However, David is not at home. He is out with Vanessa. Unaware of this, the boss continues to call out for David. At the same time, Robert, who has been spying on them, watches from a distance.
After that, the next morning, David and Vanessa go boating. Robert joins them, which infuriates David. David introduces Robert to Vanessa, and the three of them set off for boating. During the ride, Robert starts teasing Vanessa, making her uncomfortable. She gets angry and speeds ahead in her boat. Meanwhile, Robert maliciously throws David's boat stick away, causing David's boat to lag behind. As Robert continues to chase Vanessa, David falls behind.
Suddenly, Vanessa's boat collides with a log, causing her to fall into the water with the boat on top of her. Seeing this, David acts quickly, jumping into the water and rescuing Vanessa just in time. Robert, however, doesn't seem to care and continues boating ahead. Once David brings Vanessa safely ashore, he confronts Robert, asking him why he's behaving this way and what he wants. He questions Robert's intentions, expressing confusion over his actions and whether Robert sees him as an enemy. Despite David's inquiries, Robert remains indifferent, giving David the impression that he doesn't care at all. Disheartened by Robert's lack of response, David walks away, leaving Robert behind with his unanswered questions. Afterward, both David and Vanessa are at David's house when the police, led by Detective Reyna, arrive. David had met Detective Reyna previously at the office.
Detective Reyna begins questioning David, starting with inquiries about his missing car. She asks him which day his car was stolen, which happened to be the day after Jenny's death. David recalls it was possibly on a Saturday. When asked about his whereabouts on the night of Jenny's death, David explains that he was at a party with his friend Robert, and they returned home by tram later that night. Then Detective Reyna asks if David had met Jenny that night. David denies it, saying he exchanged numbers with a girl but didn't know it was Jenny. Hearing this, Vanessa, who is sitting nearby, begins to suspect David, and David himself starts to doubt his own innocence. Detective Reyna then goes to talk to Robert. Vanessa, feeling suspicious, confronts Robert, accusing him of knowing Jenny and of his car being stolen the day after Jenny's death. Upset, Vanessa leaves David's house.
Meanwhile, Detective Reyna interrogates Robert. Later, David goes to meet Robert to discuss what happened. David questions Robert about what he said to Vanessa. Robert admits to speaking the truth. Then they both sit down, but Robert starts talking about harming Vanessa, which makes David uncomfortable. Later, David goes to meet Vanessa, carrying a remorseful expression and intending to apologize. However, Vanessa remains furious and refuses to forgive him, slamming the door on him. She sits somewhere with a tram passing nearby. Vanessa realizes that the tram hasn't been running after 10 p.m. for the past month, which makes her realize the truth. Angered, she rushes to David's house, where Robert is present. Robert immediately attacks Vanessa upon seeing her, while David, unaware of the situation, returns home to find Robert there, seemingly unconcerned about everything. Frustrated, David kicks Robert out of his house and tries to call Jenny. However, Robert intercepts the call as he has Jenny's phone. David tells Jenny everything, unaware that Robert is listening in on the conversation. Suddenly, Robert hangs off the call. After a long time, David finally arrives at the office, only to find his boss absent. He enters his boss's office and discovers his lunchbox, realizing it's another one of Robert's schemes. Just then, he receives a call from Vanessa, but it's Robert on the other end. David realizes that Vanessa is with Robert, and the call abruptly ends. David rushes to the jungle by the river where they had been before. Meanwhile, we see Detective Reyna discovering a body alongside David's missing BMW, which turns out to be David's boss and house owner. Back to David, he hears noises coming from an abandoned house and heads towards it. Inside, Robert is assaulting Vanessa, causing her to lose consciousness. David arrives and attacks Robert upon seeing what he's doing to Vanessa. The situation intensifies as the police arrive just as David is about to strike Robert. They apprehend David, who is found holding a weapon, while Robert manages to escape, leaving David believing that Vanessa is dead. Later, the detective approaches David and expresses gratitude for his assistance. She then reveals that Vanessa is alive, shocking Robert, who had believed her to be dead.
Following the incident, the police arrest David, and he learns that Vanessa is alive. Vanessa is immediately taken to the hospital by the police for treatment. In the final scene, we see Robert, realizing that his deeds have caught up with him, drowning himself in the river, bringing the story to a close.
The story has got 6.1 rating out of 10 on IMDb. The Good Neighbor. Luke Kleintank brings depth to the character of David, whose accidental actions set off a chain of events that spiral out of control. Vanessa's grief, portrayed by Eloise Smith, adds an emotional anchor to the narrative. However, it's Jonathan Rhys-Meyers' portrayal of Robert that steals the show. His portrayal of the seemingly perfect neighbor harboring sinister motives keeps you guessing at every turn. The conflict between David and Robert builds to a climax that's as chilling as it is riveting. This is a story of guilt, redemption, and the dark corners of human nature that will leave you deep in thought long after the credits roll. So how is the recap? Do let us know in the comment. Subscribe for new story.